This week's episode is sponsored by Scorpion Energy. Scorpion Energy. Feel the sting, now with 75% less spiny rat lice eggs. Advertising. You almost can't get away from it. Even this show, which strives to be ad-free, has often had ads thrust upon it by outside companies. Companies that tug on YouTube's apron strings and just, oh, his video's infringing on our copyright, even if it's fair use, infringing on our copyright. We want to put some ads on there and take all the money for it. It's filthy and horrible. And even in your video games, commercials are everywhere, sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes in almost subliminal ways, and sometimes not. Sometimes in overbearing, overwhelming, embarrassing ways, like we've seen with Street Fighter V, and like I fear we may see with other games in future, because welcome to the AAA game industry. It's filth! As part of its ongoing commitment to making Street Fighter V the worst game it could possibly be, Capcom has started shoveling advertisements into the game, putting sponsored content on loading screens, battle stages, and on the fighters themselves with all new costumes designed to dress up your favourite world warrior like a goddamn NASCAR car. Hey, do we call them NASCAR cars? Or just NASCARs? 'Cause NASCAR makes them sound like a He-Man character. What? No, He-Man was a cartoon from the 80s, Craig. What? No, it's not like the fucking Inhumanoids. How the hell have you heard of Inhumanoids but not He-Man? How does that even fucking happen? Street Fighter V has not had the most auspicious run. It launched in an early triple access state, joining such games as Star Wars Battlefront 2015, a big name game that was nonetheless unfinished and took a pay us now, we'll finish it later approach. On top of that, the game's fight money currency rules the game's progression, a currency that is a grind to obtain and has only gotten grindier as Capcom attempts to keep people paying for DLC rather than playing the game. Speaking of which, you can buy the bundle of DLC for Street Fighter V on Steam for $309.07. A bundle that will include not one, not two, but fucking 3 season passes. And with all that in place, Capcom decided what Street Fighter really needs is ad-supported content. As of right now, Street Fighter V has Capcom Pro Tour ads slapped on its characters and environments, and when I say slapped on, that's really what it fucking looks like, as if Akuma thought to himself, you know, what I need on my dark, intimidating martial arts gear is a fucking giant blue sticker, that'll really make me look like a fucking arsehole. The so-called ad-style costumes are a fucking embarrassment, if we're being totally honest. It makes all the fighters look like idiotic pricks. I mean, Dalsim's popped a sticker on one of his skulls! On one of his frigging skulls! Is he a moron? Is he actually a fucking moron? Did Guile really paint over his tattoos to promote Capcom Pro Tour? Is he that stupid? These ad-style costumes are a fantastic glimpse into how major publishers really see their video games. Not as art, not as expression, but as sheer product, for which making money is the only thing that matters. It don't matter how embarrassing it is to the game or the people who play it, so long as there's some material gain to be had, a game publisher couldn't give a fuck what happens. Now this is something we know already from years of even casual observation of the so-called AAA game industry, but it's always nice to be reminded. These ads can be turned off, but doing so will relinquish a bonus on that aforementioned fight money which is being offered to players in exchange for their exposure to advertisements. This sets what I believe to be a rather unsettling precedent, one that could see more AAA games embrace advertising, on top of every other fucking thing they've done to poison the medium in their never-ending quest for more money than is reasonable.
Action! Action Man Bungee Jump Extreme with automatic quick release harness swings into action and catches X on the hop. Action Man Bungee Jump Extreme.
Product placement in games is nothing new, but they've generally been slyly integrated in the world. for the most part. Sports games have gotten away with a ton of this shit, as titles like FIFA can justifiably whack Gatorade sponsorships into proceedings because real-world sports are themselves more product placement than game at this point. Hell, the fact people get excited about the Super Bowl for the fucking commercials as much as the football itself is indicative of how fucked up we've gotten. That shit is why people get trampled to death on Black Friday, people! It's not just sports games though. Metal Gear Solid 4 had an iPod in it, quite literally, that Snake could use to listen to music in-game. Alan Wake had billboards and other plugs for Verizon in it, while the billboards in Burnout Paradise displayed calls to vote for Obama in contested states. Even Nintendo has had a go at this, sticking a Mercedes-Benz into Mario Kart 8. More recently, Final Fantasy 15 had an entire quest themed around cup noodles, going at great lengths to remind us that the shrimp they use in cup noodles was selected from over 60 varieties for their flavour and shape. God. That's pretty fucking shameless, but things were a lot worse in the 90s where they were not even trying to be sly about it. Zool, one of the many mascot platformers of its day, was a glorified commercial for Chupa Chups, displaying logos and gigantic fuck-off lollipops all over the goddamn shop. It was a veritable Chupa Chups orgy, as whatever the fuck Zool was meant to be jumped around a candy-coloured world of corporate logos and sticky floors. A bit like the Game Awards, but with more 90s tude. James Pond 2, Robo-Cod, would frequently remind its players that penguin bars existed. Do you remember James Pond? Do you remember penguin bars? I haven't thought about that shit in like 20 years. One notorious example was the PAL version of Biker Mice from Mars, which ruthlessly seared the Snickers logo into the brains of the poor children who played it. There were Snickers banners on the racetracks, while the titular Biker Mice themselves actively shilled for it, telling their impressionable audience that even winners need something to satisfy their hunger. And I know what you're thinking, because we're all thinking it. Why the fuck were the Biker Mice from Mars plugging Snickers and not Maltesers? Sort it the fuck out, video games, you utter pricks. The 90s was a fucking free-for-all, I tell thee. These days, entertainment has to be a bit more subtle about which corporate fingers are jammed deep into its arsehole, unless the entertainment's being made by Adam Sandler, in which case you can be dazzled by blatant displays of Coke products and Dunkin' Donuts logos all day fucking long. Let us not forget certain games that existed as product placement themselves. The quasi-classic and surprisingly good Cool Spot starred the red circle in the 7-Up logo and was jammed with other red circles and green bottles to get you thinking about that sweet, refreshing taste. 7-Up would try its hand at another game starring Fido Dido, the mascot of 7-Up that only me and like 5 other people remember because he was stupid. Now that game went unreleased, though I played a ROM of it many years ago and I don't recall it being very good. The NES had a Dominoes themed game, Avoid the Noid, while Chex Quest was a Doom mod given away for free as a prize in cereal boxes themselves. This tradition has remained in more modern ages, as seen with the famous Burger King games for Xbox 360, one title allowing you to play as the Burger King himself to sneak up on people and deliver them a sandwich unbidden, like some drug-addled burger-themed reverse mugger. Doritos had a game or two under its belt, even Sour Patch Kids got in on the action last gen. There was a notorious Yaris game, and who could forget Pepsi Man? A logo-branded Sprinter there, with no face on its smooth metal head, running for whatever mockery of life it has from a gigantic can of Pepsi, because it has no mouth and it must scream. You know, he could just step onto the sidewalk and avoid the can altogether, not that he'd know, because he doesn't have eyes! All of this is to say that despite this long history of corporations snowballing money between each other, Capcom's ham-fisted and graceless way of shoehorning promotional material into Street Fighter V still stands out to me as a rather foreboding shape of things to come. This looks to me like a testing of the water, taking a game that's been out for quite some time and seeing what can be gotten away with. Can we plop logos onto our loading screens, our stages, and yes, even our fighters. And if we can get away with that, what else could we do? We're not yet looking at full-on commercial videos being stuck into AAA games, except for the literal TV commercials that could be viewed in Alan Wake. Oh yeah, it wasn't just billboards. But we can see them in many free-to-play mobile games where you're offered in-game currency or even a chance to keep playing after losing in exchange for pausing play and watching a 30-second vid. It's all rather shameless and grody, but the games are free and so it's become an acceptable part of the experience more or less. Then again, so were microtransactions once upon a time before AAA publishers normalised them as part of the premium product. And I worry we'll see the same trajectory with in-game advertisements. In fact, I've already seen plenty of defences for the sponsored content in Street Fighter V that echo the early arguments that were in favour of microtransactions. And look where that got us, with games now grindier and less rewarding by design to accommodate aggressively excessive monetization. I am now seriously wondering when we'll see a full-priced premium game offer rewards, or carved-out content given back to the player masquerading as rewards, in exchange for pausing play and watching a 30-second video. I'd be willing to bet my fucking house on executives within the industry having at least had plenty of conversations about that. You know they have, of course they fucking have, because no matter how many billions of dollars in microtransactions they make, no matter how much extra cash they make on special and deluxe editions of games, no matter how much DLC they crank out, they could always make more, their shareholders expect more, and by God they'll do whatever it takes to make more. Up to and including breaking the law in Belgium. Even if it takes vandalising a game to plaster corporate logos everywhere, even if it takes throwing a full-bore genuine commercial into the experience, they've already thought about how to implement it and how to justify it if or when it happens. No doubt they'd still frame in-game ads as player choice, like they've dishonestly done with the rest of the shit they've butchered their games with, failing to admit the psychological strings they pulled to make said choice less optional. Microtransactions and in-game ads share some of the same psychological tricks. For example, the sunk cost fallacy with regards to progress. There are many runner-style games where you can get very far but lose your progress upon death. You are therefore primed to willfully invite an advert onto your phone if it means you can retain all that progress you'd otherwise lose. You've already invested so much time into that run, why not invest some more and watch the video? And experiments are always being run to work out how best to manipulate players and push products. There's this study published in May of 2017, the title of which alone casts a dark cloud on us all: Product Placement in Video Games, the Effect of Brand Familiarity and Repetition on Consumers' Memory. The study argues that video games are an increasingly seductive prospect for marketers due to the fact players can spend hours interacting with a game and are thus perfectly positioned for repetitive brand messaging. Also in 2017, a study by Delta DNA states that developers see ads as an important monetization opportunity, noting that mobile game developers have become less cautious and more confident about sticking ads in their games. Those reward-based video ads I talked about are now in 58% of all free-to-play mobile games, and Delta DNA CEO Mark Robinson actively chides developers for thinking about their audiences and putting the audience's enjoyment ahead of adverts. Game makers, he argues, are also still fearful about increasing ad frequency per session, and as a result, many are still leaving a lot of cash on the table. This is borne out by the fact that average ad revenues are still only a third of total game revenues. Basically, he's saying that games could stand to have a lot more fucking ads in them, and I do fear that's where we're headed, because I've long since stopped putting a single damn thing past the game industry, and they've already layered so much additional monetization, so many obscene levels of additional money-making opportunities onto their products that at this point more obtrusive in-game adverts only look like a natural step. After all, why just sell a product when you can sell it and then turn your customers into the product as well, their mental real estate being sold to the highest marketing bidder? I at least expect product placement to make a significant comeback. Maybe we can have Rayman Ray-Bans, or God of Walmart. How about a tub of I can't believe it's not Bubsy? Actually, I'm seriously pitching that last one. It's cat butter, people. It's cat butter, people! Cat butter! Maybe the game industry won't be so gauche as to Monster Energy, there's another one, won't be so gauche as to put 30-second video ads into their paid games. Then again, maybe they will be, because no amount of gauche seems to be too gauche for the game industry. This is an industry in which Naughty Dog once told us, justifying the old online pass mechanic, that we gotta make money somehow, ignoring the fact that they were currently at the time having Nathan Drake shill for Subway, and that they were, you know, making money by selling video games. Go figure. There is no shame, and there's no shortage of people, sadly, who are still willing to swallow the lines of bullshit, the total bullshit that comes out of an industry that makes tacky money hand over shameless fist. It continues, unfortunately, and they keep lying and talking bullshit and making a ton of money and pleading poverty to justify some of the awful crap that goes into these games to make even more money. But there we are. There we go. And advertising itself might be the devil. You know, it's used to support tons of content online and a lot of video games on mobile, of course. But we can't forget the undue amount of influence and pressure and sway that advertisers wield. Many of you may have seen a movie on network television and seen just how mutilated those movies can be. People often talk about censorship in the game industry, and they often blame like cultural critics and stuff, people that actually have no power outside of discussing things on the internet. But if you look at, say, skeletons being taken out of games to sell them in China, if you look at, you know, this Monday to Friday plane in Snakes on a Plane on network television, you'll see that it's marketing reasons. Publishers themselves and game companies and TV networks and what have you are more than happy to gut the content of their productions and the things they're showing people if it makes more money for them, which ultimately is the root cause of any changes to entertainment. It's to make money. Game publishers don't care about censorship if they can get away with it. Ubisoft was more than willing to change content in Rainbow Six Siege to sell it in China. They've only just relented because there was enough of a backlash, enough of a...
Up in Starland, all the Milky Way magic stars are going to the fun fair. But look out, here comes trouble. It's a chocolate-eating monster from outer space.
Watch out behind him.
Yummy, yummy, magic stars for my tummy.
Luckily, Bright Star's given Superstar a super idea.
Sorry. Hop it, Three Eyes.
Milky Way magic stars, they're yummy for your tummy.
And advertising overall is a great sanitizer of content, because there are a lot of, I mean, just look at WWE nowadays, where they struggle to let more than a handful of very privileged wrestlers even say words like ass. You know, it's because they want that sweet advertising money, and they've got those network TV deals, and there are a lot of there's a lot of content that brands do and do not want to be associated with. We've seen some of this on YouTube as well, because ultimately these days products aren't made, entertainment products aren't made solely to entertain you, the viewer. If anything, that's a nice bonus to them. It's more that they want to, well, you're there to have other products flogged to you, basically. And, you know, again, maybe the game industry won't be so gauche as to throw it in your face the way it is in mobile games. But I certainly think advertising is going to get more hold, more sway. The game industry is too big and too juicy a dinner for marketing to not want as massive a slice of it as possible. So I do worry that we'll see more of that there, alongside all of the other monetization things as well, because that's the thing about the game industry, the AAA game industry, is that it's not like something is used to subsidize something so they don't have to do the other stuff. They will do it on top of the other stuff. It's never a, well, I could take ads over microtransactions. The game industry will give you ads and microtransactions if it can get away with it. Anything it can get away with. You give the AAA game industry a mile and they take the country. And I know it's supposed to be give them an inch, but they've already taken the inches. So you give them a mile, they'll take the world if they can. because they're the AAA game industry and they're filth. Thank God for me. We'll see you next week for the Jimquisition Awards. Yes, some positive stuff for once. How about that? You keep saying you want it, even though you don't watch it.